Well, folks, here I am. It's Monday. Still, I'm at home, so I'm still wearing the same shirt. Cheers, Monday, the 20. Geez, the time goes so fast. The 23rd. Cheers. Well, it's officially fall, and it really came. Saturday was 90 in Omaha. Sunday, the high was 60. Not turning on the heat just yet, but like I said, it's not time to crank up the heat just yet. Not the furnace anyway, but really didn't realize it until I thought about it this morning. But something I like to do when it gets cold is to make stews and big pots of beans. And so today I will. I always keep a lot of dry beans. It's one of the things that I learned as a kid from my parents and grandparents and from being poor financially, is how to stretch food. And something about starting a big pot of lentils today, slow cook them. And I do them the old style way. Stephanie, if you see this, hello, you too, Kareem. I'm sure you remember, Stephanie. Well, maybe you don't. I remember because I watched. Both of our grandmothers had a process for making food. Dad's mom was real into making soups, and I watched her process, and it would take her days. Do you remember that? It would take her a couple days to make these huge pots. And mom's mom, had a whole nother way. The way that she would clean the beans and split certain kinds of beans and soak them with pork fat and shit like that to get flavors. I don't use pork, but I'll be adding some stuff, mainly vegetables. Hope you all are doing okay. I'm just riffing because this is what I do. I'll show some music, but on the music tip, I had a good weekend. Cale, who I mentioned to you a few videos back, is a young musician who I've known and been around for years now. But Saturday was the first time he brought his instrument to the house, and we had a session. We didn't get anything recorded, but it was a wonderful time. Cale is a young black man. Turns out I know his parents, or know of them, have done music with his dad. But it was wonderful because Cale is really smart, young, and has a bright aura. Man, just the kind of person I like to be around. Just their countenance gives off light. Unlike some people who are really dark and negative. What's fascinating is, and it's very real. Okay, computer, act right. I'll show some records in a second because we weren't able to record anything because my music is a challenge for most people in this area, maybe not necessarily everywhere. But Cale is not as skilled as Blake or as experienced, but he has a beautiful tone, and he has good timing. He's good on the timing. But what we discovered, like what I went through with Blake in working on the muse and stuff, is that they have to play differently to play to my music. These guys are so used to playing what everyone else plays, which is blues based, and very little of what I do is blues based. And so first thing Cale discovered, just like with Blake, is that you can't fall back to your default licks on my music. It won't work. The blue notes, it's like so we had to stop and talk a little bit. It's like, so you keep putting that particular interval in there. It's like, you're going a half step, probably a whole step would fit what I'm doing. Is that just like a default? And he thought, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's what you can do those intervals with almost everything everyone plays because everything is so bluesy. I said, well, this is a different thing. Let's try to find your voice. So we weren't able to record anything, but we had a wonderful several-hour session where at first, let me just talk about this. At first, I let him explore and see what he could come up with. And then I finally said, well, if you don't mind, would you be willing to mimic or learn the melody lines that I have already on these pieces, like, and it opened up. It's like, oh man, that's beautiful. I said, yes. We're not playing a riff. We're expressing something lyrically. So I sent him home with a CD of stuff, about 24 minutes of music for him to learn, because he has a beautiful tone, and I think I can work with him. Plus, Blake is just busier than hell. Blake leaves for Europe this week on a tour with Josh Hoyer. So Blake still wants to work with me, but it's like I can't wait around until Cobwebs because he's busy with other shit. So just wanted to share that. The other thing is he's a music collector, and yet he is so fascinated and likes what I'm doing so much. We'd never even get anything else. I said, I'd love to play some music for you if you want to hear something of interest. And he said just straight up front, I haven't heard anybody making music like you before. It's a wonderful boost. So I let me just be completely transparent here. I meant to look up this woman to tell you something about her because I did play records and some CDs this weekend, and I pulled this Burn, Anna Marie Jopek and Friends with Pat Metheny, Upogeny. And this is wonderful. And what drove me to it was I knew it, yeah. I knew that she wasn't Brazilian, but she sings a couple of different languages on here. She's Polish. This is a burn. I did a complete burn on this one because I don't see her records. I had seen her in a video online with Pat Metheny and was really taken by her voice. A while back, somebody asked me, what do I think of Pat Metheny? Well, Pat Metheny is good. I've seen him live a long time ago with Gary Burton. However, Pat Metheny repeats himself. He can really play, but I've noticed when he does it on here, it's like he's doing this thing like a bird call, like a mating call. It's this particular, it's bluesy, but it's almost cringy if he uses it too much to me. And on here, he uses it a lot because it's like he's playing to this woman. I hear it. When he forgets about, this is just how it hits me, when he forgets about trying to make the woman happy and just play that guitar, that's when it shit happens. But then there's these other parts where he's trying to it's almost like he's trying to woo with this. And so I have several Pat Metheny albums. I hardly listen to him because I like his music more than his particular guitar style. This was wonderful. It was like I'd never heard it before. Beautiful. I gave this a good listen, and so I have to kind of I have to update what I said about it. This latest thing, which comes out this week, by Martin Archer and Jan Todd on Discus, Private View. My first impression of this was the way it starts. I was mentioning things like pentangle and stuff. It's actually much more spacey than that, not traditional sounding. They get into electronics and ambience. I like her voice. There are a lot of notes here, and I only read a little bit here, but that's cool. The way that Martin Archer does his stuff, CD only, no vinyl. It's understandable financially, but he likes to include information, let people know. That's really good. This is one of my favorite recent releases on the Discus music label, Private View, Martin Archer and Jan Todd. I can recommend this highly. Now, they have several things that I need to go back to that they've sent to me over the years. This I need to. Well, I told you about this with the Laura Jerd and Paul Dunmore, where it's like a band, almost like a marching band. It's good stuff. It's a good label. I appreciate it. I appreciate being on their mailing list. Cheers again. Coffee is good this morning. That was the other real neat thing about Cale is that I'm used to working with musicians who like to smoke, weed. I like to smoke pot. There's no smoking involved on Saturday. Let him know. I'm a bald head Rasta. He's not interested. He's here about the music. That was refreshing. You know what I'm saying? And I know there's a lot of musicians who are good who don't imbibe. It doesn't make you a better musician to get high. It's another facet of how a person experiences reality that is opened through that experience. It's not necessary. So I found that refreshing. It's like, it's nice. It's not a prerequisite. I've been in the past, been in bands where it was, you gotta be down. You gotta be down with us. That's how I ended up doing Crystal Meth for a while with the blues rock band that I was in. What a waste of time that was. So I pulled a couple things that I played that I put away. So I played records, but I put a lot of stuff away to get ready to make room. And I'm going to see if I can get... Oh, all right. I'm going to put this together. Let me put this together. Okay. So I had to pull a record I want to talk about. I haven't played it, but it came up through some of the videos that I viewed this weekend. But here's an album that I played, pulled it with the idea maybe this one can be traded. Nope. It's a small private label out of Minneapolis. A trio, Mike Elliott, Willard O. Peterson Jr., and Bill Berg. A trio, guitar-led. Mike Elliott on guitar. Celebration Records, a small label, private label, probably. This is really good, very relaxing. There's beauty on here. Where he plays some Sarah Jane is that's a Nana Grusin composition, and then there's smoking stuff on here. Mike Elliott is not a virtuoso, but he really pushes. And as a result, it's really good. It brought to mind Joe Pass, who is a virtuoso, and in passing, I like Rick Beato, and I'm watching all of his videos. Over time, I'm watching all of the videos because he is got a lot of experience, and I like his level-headed approach to talking to his guests and talking about music. I like him a lot. And I encountered where he, a while back, made a video about his dad turning him on to this album, Virtuoso by Joe Pass. And then he played some of it as he was talking. The Mike Elliott, this is good in that he is really pushing his technique. He's really trying to play his very best. And even then, it's a shadow compared to what Joe Pass does. And Joe Pass wasn't a show-off. That's what I like about him. He played with Oscar Peterson. The thing I noticed about Oscar Peterson is that Oscar can play with a lot of soul and depth, but he can also show off and just show off his technique. And he's got some records where all he's doing is showing off because that's what they're paying him to do. I've never heard Joe Pass do that. Joe Pass plays with so much soul and beauty and abandon. It's like, how can he do that? If you've never heard this album or heard Joe Pass, I have several other Joe Pass records. I'm not going to grab them. If there's one to hear, this is it. Virtuoso. I used to play Stella by Starlight. It's a standard. It's a jazz standard. And my dad loved it, and he played it well. So he played it a lot. It's one of those tunes that you don't even call it off. The lead instrument starts it off with the phrase, da, da. You hear that note? I'm proud to say that I'm in the group of people who all they have to do is hear that one note, and you know what's coming next. It's Stella. There's a few other, there's actually a lot of standards that are like that. George Coleman, who I watched a documentary about recently, was like that. And I know some folks who played with him in New York not that long ago, where he'd just show up down to Village Vanguard or whatever and just jump up on the bandstand, and he wouldn't call shit off. He'd just expect you, like old school. Well, you're supposed to know this, motherfuckers. Come on. So what he does with Stella by Starlight is just amazing. It is just amazing. And he was a junkie. I heard the stories about him on gigs, TV shows where he's nodding off until it's time to play. He'll be sitting there just nodding off. Then when it's time to play, you can't even believe what he's doing. Joe Pass. Okay. Completely different lane of music. Italian prog rock. I pulled this. I've been thinking about it. It just pops up in my head. Records will just pop up in my thoughts. And then it's like I'll eventually say, okay, go play it. This is not Italian, excuse me. This is from Spain. Attila, Riviera. This is real good. This is the reissue on Wawa. This is real good. Keyboard oriented, but the guitar is in there trying to keep up with him too. And this is not derivative. This does not sound like Emerson, Lake and Palmer. But it's real keyboardy. And in that sense, I really like it. It's very, very good. Attila, Riviera, however you say that. I have their other album too. It reminds me, in the comments this morning, someone mentioned Jim Pembroke of Wigwam's solo records. I'd have him if I could find him. I have yet to come across a Jim Pembroke solo album in the wild. I think I've only seen one in a store once, and it was one of those deals where I had to pick and choose, and he got left behind. But yeah, I'd love to have those Jim Pembroke solo albums. Here's one where I was saying to myself, because I was over there like just rummaging, and it's like, I got all these Vangelis records, I never play them. I really like Vangelis, but it's like when I look to play stuff, it's like it doesn't like hit me. So I said, just fuck it, just play it. Wonderful, The Dragon. This is an unofficial release on Charlie Records. Charlie is a label out of England I don't know a whole lot about, but they have put stuff out over the years where you find out, well, they didn't actually have permission or licensing to put it out, but they put it out anyway. I hate it. I hate that that has happened to artists who didn't get their just due. But in the dead music business, most of the time the artist was the last one to get paid, unless you finally get on the level of an Elton John, and even then you have to fight like hell to get your own money. This is really wonderful. It's very Greek. I'm looking for that instrument. He's playing on like a bouzouki or something like that, stringed instrument. This is wonderful. 4 long pieces. Vangelis, his album Earth is the one. That's probably my favorite. And that's real dreamy and special. It's like that's a real cool special album. But it's like, I'm glad I pulled this. Vangelis, the Dragon. And I have several of his albums. 2 more that I pulled. Well, 3. I have a collection of music from New Zealand on the Flying Nun Records label. When I found out about that label, it just caught my interest. There's a lot of music like this that I wouldn't be bothered with now, but as an expression of a particular time and passing of a moment, this stuff stays in the collection. This is the 3Ds, Fishtails. I believe this is their only record. It's scratchy. These folks don't know how to play real well, but this is real original, and it's got that something. It's got heart. I ended up playing a couple songs up of this, Ball of Purple Thread. It's like, oh man, that's a good song. 1990, 3Ds. I'm glad I kept this. I have a few other Flying Nun records that I don't play too much because of that. It's like it's real jangly or rough cut, but there was something going on there. Maybe the whole idea of like these people are discovering their own identity. It's like we don't have to try to sound like the United States. We don't have to try to sound like the bands in London. We can do our own thing. Tall Dwarfs, I think, and The Clean come to mind. Good stuff. What else? Next to the 3Ds is my Henry Threadgill. And this is one of his that I haven't played much because it's not one of my favorites, but I'm glad I did. He was doing a particular thing on this album. You know the number. The Threadgill Sextet. Seems like he gives an awful lot to Deidre Murray. Never mind. Oh, there it is. Frank Lacey. That's what I was noticing. A lot of trombone on here. This is good. It's also percussive. He's a music professor. Obviously a highly intelligent man. It shows in his music. I mean, he can play. He can play, and he can play with fire, but he's full of ideas. Henry Threadgill. Monster musician. And then another one that I was thinking, play this. Gorilla Toss. I regret that I didn't go see them when they came to Omaha, I think last year or the year before. Played at Low End, where I'm on the album. I just didn't go. This is their most recent album, I think. Famously Alive. I really like this. To me, it's as much pop music as it is progressive rock in a very modern sense. They don't sound like prog from the 70s. What I mean when I say prog is that it's full of ideas, it's fresh. One thing sounds way different from the next. I like that cover. I love color. And they keep it moving. They keep it moving. That's good. And then the other thing I played, which is, I'm glad I have this, but it's like, this is like, okay, I'm not going to be playing this very much, but I'm glad I got it. Dream Sequence Cosmic Eye. Still haven't got all the way through the story, but it's about this Amancio de Silva, this musician. And there's several parts here where it's just him playing his string instrument. I'm not even sure it's a guitar, but he plays like Keith Jarrett does, where he sounds out what he's going to play as he plays it vocally, and it's picked up throughout the album. And after a while, it's like, oh man, that's getting on my nerves. But at the same time, it's very unique sounding. And I like that, unique sounding. So there's some music for you. There's a bit of time that I've spent with you. Hope everyone is well. We'll see what the madness of the world brings this week in the news. It's going to be more madness. I want to shout out a lady who, is it still here? Here's what she said. Random Island says, I start my day with a little Dereck Higgins. Helps me get a grip on this crazy world. And I'm a white lady. And I responded to him, well, that's because you're a human being. She thanked me. I bring up race because of the injustice. It's not because I want to. It's an unfortunate thing. I would like to live in a world where my ideal value is actually in play, that we recognize one another as the same. We're the same species. We're one family. We ought to be trying much, much harder to get along and love each other than we do. Well, we're stuck on stupid, squabbling and fighting over the shiny bits and being jealous of one another. And, well, I don't like their color, or I don't like the way that they fix their food, or I don't like, stuck on stupid. So that's why I said, you're a human being. White lady, that don't matter to me. Not to me, I don't want it to matter. I have to bring it up because it's shoved in our face. And it's not okay to just ignore like the injustice. I'll say this again because I couldn't bear it, but I watched part of a TMZ special on Diddy, the downfall of Diddy. I'm not surprised at all the stuff surrounding him. I won't be surprised if they pull up some names that most people won't expect to hear hanging out at Diddy's place. There's no controversy there to me. It's the double standard where the black person gets caught and is immediately punished, and the white person, and this person, this example, I'm going to say Trump, he's allowed to run for president. Done the same kind of shit, involved with the same stuff. And it's a horrible double standard. If I had white skin, I could ignore it or act like, oh, that's not real. But I'm on the receiving end of this as a African American, dark skin, whatever. So I talk about it. It's wrong. I am not a fan of Diddy, and I am also not surprised to hear about some of the really weird and negative shit that will go down around him because of power. But I'm saying that it's unfair how the black person always gets caught and punished, and white people just skip and saunter on down the road. It's wrong. Unfortunately, it will never change. But I don't have to be quiet. Some of y'all don't like to hear about it. And that's why I bring it up. It needs to change. And that's what I got to say today.